All right, today we're going to be doing the two-sum question. This is like the most universal LeetCode question ever, right? Like this is like the first question you do. Um, the interesting thing about this question is that, interesting about almost every question is that there's multiple ways of doing it, and two-sum is not unique when it comes to that sense. There are two ways of doing this question. One of them using Hashmap, right? I think that's the most well-known one, right? Uh, for that one in particular, it, no matter how the array is sorted, you will be able to get your answer. Um, and then the other method is using two pointers, which that one is a little bit more particular because your array needs to be sorted in order to get the right answer in the right indices. But we're going to be doing both of those today. So let's see. We're given nums 2, 7, 11, 15, and your target is 9, right? So basically all you're given is a method, right, called toSum with the arguments num and value, which are set equal to this. We're going to be doing the Hashmap version first. So the first thing we have to do is create a Hashmap, right? And what Hashmaps are, think of them as like dictionaries, right? You're going to have your key and value pair. Um, and then now as we created that, we're going to get those keys and values. So for key and value, and enumerate, and what this does is basically allows you to put an array as an argument, and instead of just doing like for x in nums, right, which it would only give you the number, enumerate allows you to grab not only the number but the index it's in, right? So for instance, the first value that will be passed in this for loop is going to be 2 for value, and your key is going to be 0 because that's at index 0. um, Perfect. So what we're going to do now is create a variable. It can be whatever name you want. And this is kind of going to be your complement. So what we're going to do is we're going to subtract our value uh, value minus value. It's a little bit confusing. But what this is doing is basically we have 9, right? And we have 2. So if we're trying to find two numbers that add up to 9, then we could just subtract these two and be like, okay, so we need a 7, right? If there's a 7 and we've picked that up before, then just return the number we're on now and 7, right? Which would give us our answer. So this is just our complement. And then we're going to do an if statement. Oh, oh my gosh. There you go. If comp is in hashmap, right, we're going to want to return a list. Our list is going to have hashmap at index comp and then key. So Hashmap at index comp, what this is going to do is basically just give you comp is equal to value. This is just going to give you your key, and this is the key that of the loop iteration that we're on right now, right? Else, right? So if it's not in, which most of the time it's probably not, right? We are going to do hashmap at index value equals key, right? So this is just adding the dictionary pair into the hash map. And then what we could do is literally just initiate this. So toSum, we can set this equal to test, right? And for the arguments, we're going to put this array and 9. Beautiful. Then we're going to print test. And if I click run, your output is 0, 1, right? Which I believe, yeah, this is the exact output they wanted. Perfect, perfect, perfect. So this is with hash maps, right? Hash maps. You see how, well, it is sorted here, but it could be completely unsorted and it would still work. And now we're going to do two pointers, right? So two pointers is, instead of iterating through for loops, you're going to use a while loop, and you have two variables, one starting in the beginning and one starting in the end, which you're going to use those two pointers to kind of iterate through an array and do whatever you're trying to do, right? They don't necessarily need to start at the beginning and end, but that's the most common method, right? So we're going to create a new variable called 2 underscore sum2, right? we are going to actually use the same values. Perfect. All right. So we're going to start um, with first equals 0 and last equals length of nums minus 1, right? So you see how first is equal to 0 and last is equal to literally the last value here. So we're starting from the beginning and end, right? Starting at the beginning and end. And what we're going to do is do while fast is less than last, right? Oh, sorry. This actually supposed to be first. There you go, perfect. Okay. While first is less than last. The reason why we're doing this is because you're going to see in a second, we're going to increase the value of these two numbers. So at a point in time, they will not be fast won't be less than last, and maybe equal to or greater than. And by that time, then the while loop should stop, right? So there will be no infinite loop. Now we need to do some if statements, right? So if nums at index first plus nums at index last is less than our value, then we're going to add 1. So we're going to iterate once, for first, right? And then else if we can kind of just copy this right here. But instead of less than, we're going to do greater than, then last, and we're going to go back 1 if that's the case. And then we could just do an else statement, because if it's not either one of these, then that means that it is equal to it, and we just need to return an array containing first and last, right? Perfect. And with that being said, we could just do test2 equals 2 underscore sum 2, right? And we will pass the values which we had here. There you go. There you go. And we can just print test2, and you get the same exact result. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. All right. So to show that visually, right? We'll do the 2-pointer one. Um, so you have, I believe the name was first. Oh, yeah, first. And then you have last, right? And your target's 9. Perfect. Okay. So the first thing you're going to do is you're adding basically first and last, right? And seeing if it's either less than, greater than, or equal to the target. So 2 plus 15 is 17, right? That is definitely greater than the target we have now. So if it's greater than, then you want to iterate last minus 1. So you're moving this down here, right? And you just do it again. So 11 plus 2 is 13. That's larger than our target, which is 9. So you move last. 7 plus 2 is 9. This equals each other, right? So you check the first if statement. This doesn't happen, so you skip it. You check another if statement. This doesn't happen, so you skip it. So then you just get to the else, and you're going to just return your first and last. First hasn't moved, so that's still equal to indice 0, right, which is 2. And last has moved, and that's equal to indice 1, which is 7, which is why we return 0, 1.